In a world where jobs are how most people make money, one man, one desire, one challenge dares to break the mold. Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where we don't work for money. Money works for us. Coming soon. Viewer discretion advised.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where cash flow is king. Real estate investing, the means, so you can enjoy your retirement dreams. This is the show where we cut right to the chase. No sales pitch, no long monologues, just simple how-to real estate investing advice, so you can earn the passive income you need to enjoy your retirement today. And now, your host and chief old dog, Bill Manacero.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network. I'm your host, Bill Manacero, and this is the show where 50-plussers and anybody else who wants to join us get solid, no sales pitch real estate investing advice to help generate real cash flow. This podcast airs twice weekly on Mondays and Fridays, and if you aren't already a subscriber, go to iTunes or Apple Podcasts, type in Old Dogs, spelled D-A-W-G-S, find our podcast, and subscribe. Well, we have kind of a different show for you today. Very rarely do I deviate from real estate related topics, but since so many folks out there are just trying to figure what they're going to do in their retirement years, or maybe generate some income in their retirement years, and this falls into that category. I'm talking with a gentleman named Jon Ostenson, and Jon is a consultant, investor, author, and international speaker specializing in the area of non-food franchising. Now, hang on. This is a very interesting area. He draws on his experience as both the president of an Inc. 500 franchise system and as a multi-brand franchisee in serving clients across these capabilities. Jon is a frequent contributor for publications on the topic of franchising and franchise investments. Well, Jon, welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network.
Bill, thanks for having me. I love the show, and I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Well, I am very stoked about this, and I think there are a couple of things that hit me. One is I talk to investors all the time, people that are passive investors, active, all types, and investing in a lot of different things. And the subject of franchising has come up lots of times, but it always seems to zero in on the food side of things. And so I was really interested when I found out about you and sort of non-food franchising. But before we get into that, first, we'd like to learn a little about you and where you're from and how'd you get into this field?
Yeah, absolutely. No, based here in Atlanta, Georgia. I've got a wife and 3 young kids. We stay pretty busy here in the community. But my background is largely in the corporate world. Had a great run for a number of years, and about 5 years ago, stepped from public company life into a private company with Shelf Genie franchise system. Shelf Genie is custom pull-out shelving for your kitchens and pantries, based here in Atlanta. And that was really my foray into franchising. So stepped in, had the opportunity to serve as president and lead the company through some rapid growth. And long story short, ended up partnering with the founder of Shelf Genie and then bringing on another business partner. And we've had a few ventures since then. Currently, we are multi-brand franchisees ourselves of a few different brands in the property services space. And then because we have good people running those businesses for us, it allows me to spend most of my time consulting, which is playing matchmaker. So I get to work with clients across the country, take them through a pretty condensed process to try to help them find the right opportunities for them. I love what I do. I love that there's no cost to my clients. I get paid by franchisors on the back end. So really, we're on the same page, same side of the table, walking through these opportunities. And the life change that comes out of that has really been special to me.
Wow, that's awesome. And do you specialize? You mentioned the area home service. Did you say?
Yeah, so our own investments are largely in the home services space, but I work with clients across the board. I did a 10 unit placement, 10 location of an oil change business yesterday, and I do have a lot of work in the exercise and health and wellness space, in the property services world, automotive, senior care, really a lot of different industries. I jokingly said to someone recently, non-sexy is the new sexy. I think coming out of COVID, people are excited to get into fields that, will always be there, kind of like real estate that, are COVID resistant, tech resistant, largely Amazon resistant. And so, no, I'd say a good bit of the work that we do is in property services and home services, but that's not exclusive of other fields. The one field I do primarily stay away from is food, as you mentioned. And really that's because to me, that's a whole different world of franchising. And it's what people oftentimes associate with franchising. I know for me, that was the case up until a few years ago when the light bulb came on. But I'd say about 95% of my clients have no interest in food. It's just a different world. It's a great place to be for the other 5%. But for 95%, there are reasons why they're gravitating towards other ideas.
Now, I've heard that franchising is hot. I mean, there's a lot going on, and why is it just so popular right now? And who's buying and why?
Yeah, and I'll start out by saying franchising is not right for everyone. There are those that are too entrepreneurial that want to put their thumbprints all over everything. However, for many, it is a better path. And while it's not entirely de-risked, there are ways that it is de-risked in that, you go in eyes wide open. You're able to talk to other franchise owners within the system that you're looking at. And also, you get an understanding of the item 19 of the FDD, the franchise disclosure document, which every franchise has. And so you go in at least eyes wide open into what are the average financials, what works, what doesn't work. And so you're really starting out on third base instead of first base. Obviously in some cases you have brand recognition. In a lot of cases you may not. That's not always the most important thing. But being able to go in with a playbook that has been proven out, having a coach on the sidelines in that franchisor. And then an often overlooked area is all these other franchise owners in the system trading best practices as well as trading learnings. And so, hey, if it's your marketing is working for you in Cleveland, there's a good chance it may work for you in Dallas in a similar demographic area. And so you're able to cut some corners and get there faster, starting out on third base, if you will.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think, the appeal, when I first decided, I was coming back to the States after being in Haiti for about 12 years. I was looking at, well, what should I do? I wasn't ready to retire by any means, and I really wanted to do something. And I had started businesses and was familiar with that process, but I didn't want that kind of involvement. I mean, the 14-hour days and the things that are involved in starting a new company. I did glance at actually food franchising because I'd seen some, I know some people that own franchises, and even that seemed a little bit involved for me. So, what are some of the, pros and cons of franchising, versus maybe starting a company from scratch?
Yeah, again, kind of those points I just walked through that, I think that franchising does benefit you. And for a lot of companies out there that are thinking about scaling, there's a benefit to allowing, kind of like real estate, using other people's money. You're able to leverage up, you're able to scale more quickly. And so really it's the playbook, it's the coach, it's the other owners. And an interesting stat that the Rinker School of Business recently did a study looking at over 2,000 businesses over a 10-year period. And they looked at businesses that were franchised and businesses that were not in similar industries, trying to make as much of an apples to apples comparison as possible. And what they found is upon an exit, that franchise businesses actually trade at a multiple of about 1.5 times the non-franchised. So when you think about the fact, similar in real estate, you may be cash flowing along the way, but you're also building an asset that should have value down the road, more than what you put into it, assuming you ran it halfway well. And investors are definitely seeing that benefit. Private equity, I get calls almost every day from private equity firms that are looking to invest in franchising. They love the model. You see deals constantly. I could just rattle off the deals from the past week that I've seen out there. But as far as who is buying, because I think you asked that in your first question, it's across the board. I'd say traditionally, think of franchising, it's 50s and 60s. You take that retirement package from the corporate world, or you invest some of your retirement funds. That is a very large area. But I'm also doing a lot of placements with those that are in their 40s and in some cases even their 30s. I think, especially coming out of COVID, people are realizing maybe now's that time, to have more of a sense of control in my life. Maybe I don't want to go interview again. I've got a little too much gray in my hair in some cases. That just isn't attractive. And so I think that, that desire to scratch the entrepreneurial itch is really coming full born. Our placements to date are up well over 50% over last year, which was up over 50% over the prior year. So we're seeing just a ton of interest out there, and a lot of my clients are real estate investors. I'd say the majority of them are real estate investors. I personally am a real estate investor. I've had single family rentals for a while now, but I've got clients that have multifamily, clients that have single family, and in some cases they're really looking to diversify their portfolio. In some cases they're looking for complementary businesses, those that can potentially tag team where they see a need and they're having to hire out to a third party. They say, well, wait a minute, why don't I do that myself and then maybe service others as well.
And it's, I guess one of the big, questions that comes up in my mind is, the time commitment. Does that vary, from franchise to franchise? Is there a certain amount of committed time that you have to dedicate to operating a franchise?
So there are really two different paths. There's the full-time owner-operator model, as we call it. If you're stepping away looking for something that's 40 hours a week, let's say, plus oftentimes. And then there's what we call semi-absentee. And the majority of franchise systems allow for semi-absentee. There are some that say, no, we just want the owner-operator model here. But with semi-absentee, oftentimes people think of that as maybe 15 hours a week that you're able to put into, call it a side hustle or part-time. I always tell my clients, if we think it's going to take 15 hours, it's probably going to take 20. If you think it's going to take 10, it's probably 15. So I always want to go in with a conservative assumption. But really the key to those is getting a good general manager in place, or getting someone that can run the business. And ultimately, you may have to cycle through a couple of people. So I think going in with an expectation that having to roll up your sleeves, spend a little more time that first 3 to 6 months is more realistic. But absolutely, once you get the right people in place and you've got a good model, then it lends itself to part-time ownership in a lot of cases.
Sure. And, with real estate, for example, there's some asset classes that are hotter than others at certain times of the year. We right now, industrial is huge, warehousing, things that related to online retail. What franchises are seem to be really booming right now in your space that just seem to be real hot?
Yeah, people are loving businesses like driveway pouring and repairs, dumpsters, pool cleaning, some of those home services, essential type services. I mentioned the oil changes. Well, people think of electric cars. Well, electric cars only were 2% of all sales last year of vehicles. So they get a lot of headlines, but the fact is the oil change industry has a very long runway ahead. The 10 location deal that we did, they used unused parking spaces in a retailer shopping center with prefabricated buildings backed by an investor group. So you're able to get in for $150,000 versus your typical $500,000-$600,000 to build out an oil change. So people like concepts like that. Anything dealing with health and wellness. So whether it be IV drips or whether it be there's a great gym that's only 1,200 square feet for those that are 50 and over. And so, that's where the vast majority of wealth is in the country, and yet they're dramatically underserved in the fitness space. And many don't want to go to that big box gym on a regular basis. So, there are a lot of unique niches out there. We've got a waterless car wash that's resonating with a lot of folks. We're doing a lot of deals in, businesses like a Serve Pro type model, restoration. I'd say anything related to kids and education or pets. That's where people are gravitating right now. Another one that we're doing at least one placement with a week is on the coaching side. So business coaching, where you're able to leverage that experience that you've had and, wrap a brand around it that carries all of the assessments and methodologies and training to really legitimize your place in the coaching world. And then it's, hey, pick up 8 to 10 clients, paying you $2,000 to $6,000 per month, and you get on 3 to 4 calls each month, and you're giving back. You're spending, call it 15 hours a month or 15 hours a week, and you're making a really good income with very little overhead on the side. So what I find is over 80% of my clients, once we engage and start talking, we ultimately place them in an opportunity that was not on their radar. And so a lot of preconceived notions coming into the conversation, but then once we peel back the onion and understand what they're really looking for, we find some great matches that get them excited. So have a lot of fun doing what I do.
So with a new client or a potential client, do you sort of put them through a survey, find out what their strengths are, their interests, and so forth?
Yeah, we try to streamline as much as possible because you can easily get lost in the weeds out there. There's roughly 4,000 brands in the U.S., franchise brands. You take out the food sector where I don't focus, you're probably at half of that, so call it 2,000. Well, we've gone through, and I'm a part of the franchise consulting company, FCC, which is the largest brokerage in the country. We get to work with all the different development groups and emerging brands. So what we've done is we've really taken an intimate look at all of these, narrowed it down to roughly 300 opportunities that we feel strongly about. Good leadership teams, good profit models, unique niche and reason for being. And then what I do with my clients is we'll get on a call, spend 30 minutes or so. I'll ask, I've kind of learned what questions to ask to help understand their framework that we need to be using. So we get off that call. I'll have them fill out a questionnaire. It takes under 10 minutes. And from there, I'll bring opportunities to them. We'll get on a Zoom call. I'll walk them through typically 5 or 6, 7 opportunities that meet their criteria, that are available in their market. And then from there, we narrow it down to 2 to 3 together for them to go and actually have a phone call with. And it's entirely no obligation. It can be an iterative process. They can drop one after that first call. We can insert another one, but we try to make it manageable so you don't get overwhelmed. It allows you to focus. Then from there, the franchisor has a very refined process of a series of calls. Each week, I'm getting on a 10-minute call with my client, serving as a sounding board, helping them think through the different funding options, making introductions as needed. And we found this process to be the most effective. Yes, that's how we go about it.
That's great. Well, you mentioned funding. That definitely pops up in my mind in terms of, what are we talking about in terms of cash commitment? Is there, do people finance them? Do people come in and just, put 150 down, like you mentioned, the car wash, or what's the commitment and what's the range there?
Yeah, absolutely. So every franchise system has what's called a franchise disclosure document, or FDD. Within that, you have 23 different items or articles, as we call them. Your item 7 and your item 19 are two that we give a lot of attention to on the financial side. The item 7 would be where the franchisor discloses, here's what the investment will be. Typically, it's a franchise fee of, call it $49,000 for the first location, $39,000 for the next, $29,000 for the next. So you have, oftentimes you see people buying into 3-packs or 5-packs, as we refer to them. But then beyond the franchise fee, if it's a retail storefront, brick and mortar type franchise, it's going to include that build out cost. If it's, maybe a remote work type business or services business, it would include what initial marketing do you need out of the gate? Do you need a vehicle? Do you need equipment? And then they usually build in some working capital, 3 to 6 months of working capital into their range as well. So that item 7, I'd say on the low end, there are a number of opportunities that a lot of my real estate clients actually have gone into opportunities where they're all in right around 100 to 200,000. And then beyond that, I've certainly done placements with clients, several $100,000. Typically, if you're doing a retail storefront type business, then it would be between 200,000 and 400,000 in most cases. And then on the item 19 side, which is where the franchisor says, hey, here are the average revenues and profits across our franchisees. Sometimes they give detail by location and really break it down. Sometimes they break it up in quadrants, or they'll just give a straight average. So they'll display it different ways. But it's, oftentimes, for one location, let's say you're all in for $125,000 and it's a home services style business. Maybe it's, roofing or gutters or insulation, some little niche. Within that, oftentimes your revenues for that one location could be $400,000 to $500,000 at a 20-25% EBITDA margin. And so you think about, if you were to do a couple of those, you can really get a good ROI on that initial 125 you put in. That's the item 7 and the item 19. Going back to your question on the funding piece, there are different ways to go about funding that. Some people certainly use cash or that rich uncle of theirs. However, a lot of people will use an SBA loan. The government loves starting small businesses, believe it or not. Not all their policies always support it, but they do love that on the lending side. So SBA loans, we've got some great partners that work with all the franchise-friendly lenders out there. And so whether it be the SBA 7A loan or the SBA Express loan, there are some options there. For quite a few of your listeners, I'd suggest the ROBS program, which is tapping into your retirement funding. There's a way to set it up as a C Corp that allows you to essentially, pull out some of your funding from your retirement accounts without getting the tax implications. So that's one vehicle that a lot of people use. And then lastly, I'd say it's not as used as often, but I think it's going to become increasingly popular, is a portfolio loan. I've got a great partner up in Charlotte, has a program with a lot of cool benefits to it. If you have at least $150,000 in a brokerage account, non-retirement, you're able to borrow against that, or you're not having to actually sell any equities or securities. Instead, that's just serving as the collateral. So you can borrow up to 70% of that value and use it as a credit line where you don't have to take it all as a lump sum. Interest rates on that, based on where LIBOR are today, are between 2% and 4%. So it's free money if you think about it that way. And so those are all very popular ways of going about it if you're not looking to utilize cash.
What are the ROIs on range on these? I mean, it's all over the board, or some definitely have higher returns than others?
Yeah, absolutely. And, oftentimes I look at the operating margin or EBITDA margin, and that can be 20 to 30%, I'd say, on average for a franchise system. Well, that's as a percentage of revenue, not as a percentage return. So let's use that example of let's say a gutter business. There's a great gutter business today, largest one out there. They're all in investment. If you were to do one location, would be between $125,000 and $150,000. Now, that's your initial investment. That includes your working capital, everything you need, not having to capitalize any further. Now, what they're showing as average revenues for their franchisees is $1.2 million. That's across their 25 locations, and they're growing fast. $1.2 million with $383 dropping to the bottom line. Don't ask me how I remember that. I'm a numbers guy. And so 31% EBITDA margin. Well, that $383 over your initial investment, obviously you're more than double your initial investment. Now, in a lot of cases, I tell my clients, let's assume you only do half as well as their average, or even a third as well. Just going in conservative, and in that case, there's still enough meat on the bone with a business like that, to get you excited. Interestingly, and oftentimes I give the caveat, well, they may, even though that's their average, it may not all come in year one. It may be year 2, year 3, once they're kind of more developed. However, with that gutter business, last year, 3 of their locations in the year of COVID, one did $800,000 top line revenue, one did $1.2 million, one did $2 million in their first 12 months during COVID. So all that to say, there are definitely opportunities. I always want my clients taking a conservative approach to their pro formas. However, you're able to go in with much more than a back of the napkin estimate.
That's awesome. Hey, fellow old dogs, are you paying attention to what's happening with Bitcoin and digital currencies? Smart money investors are buying, trading, and holding cryptocurrencies within their retirement accounts while not worrying about taxes. Just recently in the news, Visa reports that more than $1 billion worth of cryptocurrency was spent by consumers globally on goods and services through their crypto-linked cards in the first 6 months of 2021. And Twitter founder Jack Dorsey reveals plan to make crypto the native currency of the internet. As you can see by the headlines each week, crypto is becoming more and more integrated into our daily lives. The smartest investors are investing within their IRA or 401k retirement accounts. The easiest way to do that? iTrust Capital, the #1 crypto IRA and 401k platform in America. iTrust Capital has over $1 billion of assets under management from happy account holders. Why? All iTrust retirement accounts allow you to invest and trade your crypto and gold tax-free on their 24/7 platform. If you have an existing IRA or other retirement account like a 401k, you can roll those over with no penalty or taxes. iTrust Capital makes investing in crypto safe and easy. You can log into your account 24/7 and invest at the push of a button. Now, crypto can be traded as easily as stocks, no private keys or complex processes. iTrust Capital also makes investing in physical gold and silver easy. iTrust uses a blockchain ledger that gives you digital ownership of physical gold held at the Royal Canadian Mint. This is not a security derivative, future, or other financial contract. This is fully backed by physical gold that is deliverable upon request. And the best part? iTrust Capital has low, transparent pricing that is 90% cheaper than comparable options. So if you are looking for an IRA to trade cryptocurrency and precious metals tax-free, go to itrustcapital.com, and if you use promo code DAWGS, D-A-W-G-S, you will get your first month free and a free crypto IRA and gold IRA investor's guide. So once more, go to itrustcapital.com and use promo code DAWGS for your first month free and to receive their crypto IRA and gold IRA investor's guide at no cost. Financial future is at the forefront of everyone's mind, especially when it comes to retirement. But what investment will give you a legacy that withstands the test of time? While investments in real estate have proven their stability, averaging returns of about 8%, an investment with equity and help will not only give you the best security for your financial future, but an even better return, averaging 8% to 12%. That is obtaining cash flow while leaving a legacy. Now, what if your investment helped not only you, the investor, but hardworking American families in the process? At Equity and Help, they make the process easy by locating properties and finding the perfect family for a home that they may not otherwise have had the opportunity to own. That is investing with a purpose outside of turning a profit. Interested? Call your philanthro-investor consultant from Equity and Help at 844-552-8828 or visit equityandhelp.com/podcast to learn more. I think one of the questions that I have off the bat, you had mentioned earlier that some insist on owner-operators. What percentage of that 300 that you deal with would you say would fall into that category?
I'd say probably 20%. I'd say a solid 80% allow for the semi-absentee model. Gotcha.
And this is kind of a dumb question, but I'll ask anyway. I mean, are there certain franchises you just go, this is just very turnkey. This is, I don't want to use the term slam dunk, but something that just is a really, it just almost always works well for the franchisee?
I mean, again, the success rate, if you were to go and start a business, and everyone knows that's 10 to 20% over, the first couple of years, whereas with franchising, that's more like 75%. So you will have a quarter of people that it doesn't work out for, but 3/4, it does. So I wouldn't call it a slam dunk, but you're definitely de-risked. The types of concepts, I'd say this driveway business. So I'm personally invested in it. I've got a few different brands I'm invested in. The driveway business, great model. It's the only national player in the space. They pour new driveways, but really the sweet spot is leveling driveways, fixing cracks, decorative overlays, sealing driveways. They were recently bought by private equity. And private equity also took a product and turned it into a franchise system that's a rubberized coating system, like for garage floors and retail floors, pool surrounds, a great complement to the driveway business. And now when you buy into the driveway business, you have the option of also taking on this other brand. So you kind of get two brands for the price of one, and they complement each other, and you can do joint marketing and such. That's one that I love. I mean, I've just seen firsthand. My business partner on that one doesn't like to spend on marketing. He's never going to probably take the business to where it can go. But I've seen with extremely low marketing spend, mainly just Home Advisor and Angie's List, our phone doesn't stop ringing. It literally doesn't. And it's just because of the SEO. People find the business online and they're starting to pump money into the marketing on the franchisor side. So yeah, I'd say that's one. I've done 5 or 6 client placements now. Every one that we've had has been successful. And caveat, I mean, some are a few months in, but so far so good. I've had several clients come back and buy additional territories, which is always a great validator right there that they're looking to expand their business. So I'd say that's one I would point to as kind of a low overhead, no brainer, get in for under 100,000.
That's great. That's great. Now, it sounds like you work with people, your clients, if they need help in terms of putting together financing, or do you just give sort of just, some off, maybe provide them materials and they can do it on their own? Do you actually work with them through that process?
So we talk through the process. I lay out the options for them. I do have, I work with Fran Fund on the lending side. They do an outstanding job of, on the SBA side as well as the retirement side. On the portfolio loan side, I work with Walt Hammond at Cedar Valley Capital. So these are guys that are, one step removed. But in a few cases, I've actually invested with my clients. I'd say that's definitely the exception. But a few times they've asked me to take a stake in there, and I wouldn't be showing them these opportunities if I didn't believe strongly enough to put my own money into them. So I have had the opportunity to do that a few times.
And you mentioned too that with the driveway business that you had a partner in that. Is that pretty common that the franchisees, for example, if you have a guy that has the money but he really doesn't want to spend the time on it, maybe to partner with somebody who can oversee the management and so forth. Do you ever sort of play matchmaker there to bring people together?
I do, but I wouldn't advertise that as a core competency or an area of focus. In my case, I invested at 49%. He's 51% in that one. And then he gets paid for running the business. I always think it's good to have one person in charge, one person that owns it. That's been my experience. I've been in situations where I have 2 equal partners. And then, fortunately, when you have 3 partners, 2 can outvote the other one. But partnerships can be tough. So I think going in, structuring it the right way. And that is something I talk to my clients about, some of those pieces of the operating agreement that you want to include, because what happens if this scenario comes down the chute? And I've got a great franchise attorney too that I refer people out to. But partnerships are very common. In some cases, equity won't be given up. But let's say you've got a 55-year-old, they want to spend 10, 15 hours a week, and they want to have some involvement, but they'd rather be a counselor and coach on the sidelines. And maybe they want to find that young pup in his 20s that's hungry to go out there and run a driveway business, let's say. In some cases, they might give them equity or let them earn equity. In some cases, they would like to see them buy into it. And in some cases, they don't want to part with any equity because that can get things a little messy at times. And so maybe it's more of a profit sharing, and maybe there's some sort of phantom stock at the end. So there's a lot of ways to go about it. A good case study there. I've got a client over in South Carolina that is the largest owner of 2 Men and a Truck franchise system. He operates in about 12 different markets across the Southeast. And, he built up this organization and said, now's time to expand via other brands. And so he and I did 2 placements together last year for people on his team. They're younger folks that have proved themselves out over time. And in his case, he is very generous with the equity because he's had some track record with these folks. And so he'll give them equity and fund the business and say, hey, go make me proud. And so far, it's gone really well.
Would you say, looking at new franchisors and you're definitely, dealing with them on a regular basis, what seems to be one of the biggest mistakes that folks come in that want to start a franchise, but, it just is a sort of a common mistake that these people have to deal with?
Yeah, and franchising isn't right for every business from a scaling standpoint. However, it is a great option to consider. And, when I counsel on the franchisor side, and I do work with quite a few emerging brands, I always encourage them, those first couple of franchise owners, set the tone, set the culture for what is to come. So be so careful that you bring in the right people up front. They also help set the tone from a financial standpoint of what the expectations are for future franchisees. So I'd say don't jump the gun and get too excited about selling your first couple of franchises, but be patient. So that would be number one. I'd say secondly, think about where you spend your time. It is very easy for a new franchisor to get caught up on the sales side of selling franchises. Well, that takes a lot of time, the qualifying and validating of clients, candidates. I usually recommend that they use an outsourced sales organization, and there are a couple of great ones I work with out there, but that they use one of those that complements them, that acts as their team. They still get to decide who comes into their franchise system, but allows those organizations to spend their time, spin their wheels at times, getting candidates to the place that it's a good fit, and then you get to make that decision. That allows you to focus on your new franchisees, getting them off the ground, getting them off to a good start.
That's great. Looking at the folks that that have come in that have just gone gangbusters, have done really well. Do you see certain common threads with successful franchisors that just you could just see it right up front? This person's going to do great.
Absolutely. And I'd say the number one thing, and this goes back to my days at Shelf Genie too, where we got to work with a lot of candidates and then ultimately see, 6 months down the road, a year later, 2 years later, who is rising to the top, who's just average. And then again, those quarter of people that maybe it doesn't work out for. I'd say the characteristic, the franchisor in most cases does a lot for you. If you don't have to have a marketing background because they've got a marketing team, in some cases they may have a call center. They've got technology to the degree you'd be surprised. A lot of pieces are in place. However, it still comes down to your ability to work with people. And that sounds cliche, but your ability to find and attract talent, to be able to retain and incentivize talent, and to make tough calls when needed. I'd say that is the key determinator between average and great success is that. So, I've got a lot of clients with a B2B sales background, or, typically I'd say that helps them because they've learned how to work with people, or, any type of sales, any type of position where you've led a team and you've had to make tough calls, and you haven't just been in middle management where everything was dictated to you your entire time. It is interesting. I mean, once you put on that business owner hat, some people totally change, and oftentimes for the positive. When you're playing with your own money and no longer the company's money, you think about things differently. You get that owner mentality, and I just love, especially when I'm helping people step away from the corporate world, as I did. I could have stayed there my entire career, but, I think all of us have that itch. Some of us choose to scratch it, some don't. But I think everyone considers at some point in time, what if I took that step? And so franchising is definitely a way to do it, and it definitely de-risk it for a lot of people.
Now, a lot of our audience are folks that are either, probably 50 years of age and older. They're approaching retirement or already in retirement. Maybe have been retired for a while. Some of them are looking at ways to generate additional cash flow and income. Others, are interested in, maybe they've got a nest egg. They just want to perpetuate that nest egg and be able to generate income with it and not have to draw it down. What advice would you have for, I know that's kind of two different groups there, but for that group that's approaching retirement or in retirement, how would you advise them in at least researching the possibility of franchising?
Yeah, we've touched on it a few times, but I think, how much time do you want to put into it? What role do you want to play within it? Do you want to be customer facing? Do you want to be more of a counselor and coach to someone else that is customer facing, let's say? Great example, there's a renovation business based in Nashville, Tennessee. It's a newer franchise system. They have a team of designers in Nashville. What you would do if you have a large network of real estate agents, this could be a really interesting one. Oftentimes when people are selling a home, they, have cosmetic needs, especially in the kitchen, let's say. So it could be resurfacing of cabinets or the backsplash or countertops or paint, hardware. Oftentimes you can go in and with 20 to 30,000, make a dramatic difference, make it Instagram worthy. And, and so the role that this company plays is they'll go in, they'll take pictures, take measurements, all of that, send it back to the team in Nashville. Then they use their 3D software, come up with a great professional design. And then your job is that. And then you're working with the contractor, and the contractor does all the fulfillment of the work within a few weeks. So for someone with, that's just an example, knows a lot of real estate agents, that's a great opportunity. Go out there, get involved in the Chamber of Commerce, sponsor the Little League baseball team. That's where the high payoff activities come in. So I think it's understanding, do you want to work on the business or in the business? What role do you want to play? And then what's that exit strategy? Are you looking to build an asset that, you'll sell in 4 or 5 years, or are you looking for something that's going to cash flow for the next, 12 years? You don't always know that today. But I think thinking along those lines, also, a lot of my clients are looking to add in second brands, third brands that either serve to diversify or serve to complement. Like I said, a lot of my clients have real estate holdings. Maybe it's multifamily in some cases. Well, a great business for those guys would be one that I work with that's got some really neat technology around junk removal. So it's junk hauling, debris hauling, but then also valet trash removal from multifamily apartments and condominiums. And they've got technology that's AI driven and patented that take a picture, you generate automated reports, you get instant quotes online. There's all sorts of neat features around that. But that's a great complement to someone that already has, multifamily investments.
That's great. That's great. Well, you're a relatively young guy here, and it sounds like you're in a great space. What sort of what gets you excited about the future of your business?
Gosh, I think I am in my early 40s, so younger, relatively speaking, though, with 3 young kids, I'm aging fast. I think for me, it was understanding what I love doing. I love working with clients. I love working with partners like these franchisors. I realized I don't love having a lot of employees. I would rather have a business partner that manages people. So I'm client driven, not employee driven, but it took me, to this stage recently fairly to realize that. And so I think when I see other people find their sweet spot and step into something that they love that matches their skill set, that's really satisfying to me. And I love what I do. I love getting out there, educating, helping people understand this world that, they want to be business owners. They don't know how to go about it. Don't know if it's the right thing for them. They're able to step into an opportunity with franchising that, it could be a great fit. And they're able to look at other people that kind of look like them within that franchise system and say, hey, if it's working for them, it may work for me. And so it's neat. Long runway ahead for what we're doing. Interest in business ownership is at an all-time high. I feel it's my mission to get out there and educate and to help people really fulfill their dreams. Sounds cliche, but nothing's more rewarding to me when I've got clients that come back years later and refer business, refer friends and family to me, or they come back and buy additional locations. That validation goes a long way, and that's why I do what I do.
That's great. That's great. Well, man, this is a fascinating area. Do you have certain companies that are very involved with their franchisors, as opposed to others that might provide you with the information you need and maybe some support, but others that are just man, that you've got the annual events, together and all these different things. Do they range in terms of the different companies that have franchising involved?
They do. The ones that we work with largely all, provide great support to their franchise owners, or we wouldn't be working with them. And so we've already done a lot of that vetting, but still there's differences between them. You think about where a franchise program is in their life cycle. So it could be a brand that has 700 locations out there. The benefits to something like that would be, gosh, they've seen every situation. They know how to address it. You see markets look just like yours. You know how to spend your marketing dollars. But the downsides would be that you may have to work around someone else's existing territories. You may not get the prime territory, or maybe you get attention, but not as much attention coming in as franchise owner number 701. A lot of the brands that we work with are emerging brands where they've got 15, 50 locations, something along those lines. In some cases, 5 locations, but they've got a reason for being in the space that they're in. And then I look at that leadership team. They've got to either have franchise experience or bring in good people with franchise experience around them, to check my box and have a great financial model. I love these emerging brands because you can get the best territories. You can come in and get really hands-on attention as well. So when my partners and I invest in franchises, that's usually what we're looking for. But I've got some clients that feel strongly one way or another between those two options. But I'd say more and more are erring on the emerging side. And frankly, because that part of that's what's available. Most brands that you would recognize are probably sold out in your local market. But some of these younger ones are learning from the older ones, provide a neat value proposition.
And when you say emerging, how long have they been around for? Is it just starting up?
Well, that gutter business that I mentioned, they've been around for 20 years, but they started franchising 2 years ago. The driveway business, they've been around 30 years, started franchising 3 years ago. So, in those cases, very, very proven model. And then I've got some that, I've got a waterless car wash that's coming to the U.S. They're currently in 5 U.S. locations. Well, they've got 75 locations across 15 other countries, but they're new to the U.S. And so, it's really understanding that backstory, and it's building that relationship with the franchisor. You're going to talk to the franchise salesperson up front, but once you kind of get through a few calls and you really get to spend some time with the franchisor, that's the relationship that ultimately matters, because that's who you're going to be working with day in, day out going forward. And, again, their interests are aligned with yours. The better you do, the better they do. And so I really love that symbiotic component of franchising.
Wow. Well, as somebody that's started businesses in the past and kind of gone through different work, the growth cycles and what have you, generally starting a new business, it could be 3 to 5 years down the road before you're really profitable and you're really doing well. Is that applicable in the franchising world, or when do you really see things where it's just, okay, we're definitely doing good?
Yeah, it depends on the type of business. There are some businesses that have you cash flowing within 30 days. There's some where it may take a full year, but in both cases, you should have a pretty good idea stepping into it, how long it takes. And that's feedback you get through the other franchise owners. Hey, what was your ramp up like? How did you scale? What were your learnings along the way? They can be an open book and share all of that with you. And so again, going in eyes wide open, understanding, kind of what's working elsewhere is a huge asset.
That's great. Yeah. One of the things that comes to mind there is right now just this shortage of employees, period. And I'm sure for franchisors, refer to the people that franchise, that's got to be a concern. I see employers offering, $500 signing bonus if you get hired, or just all these things to try to attract people.
That's a great point, Bill. And I'm remiss for not having mentioned it previously. As a business owner, you're always playing whack-a-mole. And I'd say right now, the mole that you're trying to whack is that labor side. There's huge customer demand, frankly, across a lot of industries. You're not lacking there. Instead, it is on that supply side, on the labor side. We've seen that. We have a pool cleaning business, home cleaning business, carpet cleaning business, the driveway business, mosquito business. Across a few different markets. And in each of those cases, labor is the challenge. And, we've figured out some ways to solve for it, providing some additional incentives, but we're also having to raise prices. And overall, our customers have been very receptive to the price increases, because we've told them for us to put the best people in your home and to do the best work, then we're going to have to raise the prices, and they get it. And so that definitely is being realized across many markets, some more than others. And a lot of my clients, as a result, are saying, hey, what are some of those businesses where I can get an ROI but have as few employees as possible? And so, we've got some great ones there where maybe it requires only 1 or 2 employees. That definitely is a big talking point these days.
That's great. Well, we're kind of zip by here, man. There's a lot of great information. This has been fantastic having you on. We have what we call this segment is Wrap It Up, where I ask you a series of quick questions about resources that you've used that have helped you in not only your your business, but your businesses, and that our hopefully our listeners will benefit from. So if you're ready, we can wrap it up.
Let's do it.
All right. Favorite book on franchising?
The Franchise MBA by Nick Nianakis. Nick is a good friend of mine and really does a great job laying out all things franchising.
Excellent. How about just a favorite general business book?
General business. Gosh, there's so many to choose from. I'd say The Compound Effect has probably had the biggest impact on me within the realm of business books. And I actually had my wife read it as well, and I've read it several times. But The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy does a great job of reminding us that those little things on a day in, day out basis really add up and pay dividends or take away dividends over time.
That's great. Great book. How about a website that you use on a regular basis that's really key to your success? Anything, franchise related or not?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Obviously Framebridge Consulting is where I would recommend we try to put some good content out there. I'm a news junkie. I do spend a little too much time on the news websites, but I like to understand what's going on, whether it be on Fox Business or on Yahoo Finance, understand the macro trends, what's coming down the chute, what effect will that have both on me personally as well as on my business, my clients. And obviously topics right now, such as inflation, are very relevant, and concern about tax increases. And I would say, right now, small business ownership, along with some similarities in real estate, are some of the last bastions of tax benefits that can be had out there. And so understanding what's coming, understanding what the trends are and what the concerns are as well, definitely informs me.
Okay, favorite app?
Favorite app? I'm pulling up my phone right now. There are quite a few apps that I use on a regular basis, but Slack is a great way for internal communication, and then all things Google for my email and such, Google Drive. So that's what I would point to, that and LinkedIn. I'm a big LinkedIn fan. I've got to know a lot of great people through that app. So that would be my social app.
Awesome. Now this question, we usually ask it of real estate investors, but you're a business guy, so I'm sure you can give us a creative answer here. But if you lost absolutely everything, all of your assets, and you had to start your business over again, or a business over again, and all you have is $1,000 in cash, what would you do with that $1,000 to relaunch your business?
To relaunch the business, I would go out and do a lot of grassroots marketing, and I would send handwritten letters and use the $1,000 on postage stamps to my network. I've been fortunate to build up a network over time, and I would reach out, because in my career so far, everything good has come through the people that I know, and I try to return the favors to them. But reaching out to my network would be number one.
Yeah, that's great. That's excellent. You sound like an old dog. It's actually stamping, envelopes. I'm going, what do you mean stamp envelopes? Nobody sends letters anymore. I'm
old school.
Hey, I love it. It's cool. Very cool. Wow. Well, I'm sure there is a lot of folks listening in our audience that would, love to find out more about you and what you do, and get some information here. What's the best way for folks to do that?
Say the easiest way is to go to franbridgeconsulting.com. That's FRAN bridgeconsulting.com. There's a way to connect with me through the website. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Feel free to personally email me, Jon, Jon, at franbridgeconsulting.com. I would love to jump on a brief intro call with any of your listeners and discuss their situation. And if there's a way that I can help them, I'm more than happy to.
That's great. That's great. Wow. Well, this has been really fantastic. A lot more information, and I think a lot of applicable things for our audience than I had expected here. So this is really great. But we have a tradition before we close out here that we are called the Old Dogs REI Network. So our guests get to give us their best old hound dog howl to close us out. And I hope you're ready for it, Jon.
Well, as a Georgia Bulldog, I am ready for the old dog.
There you go.
I'll have to call the dogs. Go dogs, sick 'em. Woof woof woof.
All right. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on, Jon. This has been fantastic.
Enjoyed our conversation, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Same here. And also, I want to thank all our old dog listeners out there for joining us too. I know there's a lot of other things you could be doing right now, but the fact that you've taken the time to join us means a lot, and we really appreciate it. Please note, everything that Jon talked about today will be outlined in detail and with links at our Old Dogs website at olddogsreinetwork.com/blog, and you're going to look for the episode with Jon Ostenson. Well, that's the show for today. Remember, cash flow is king and real estate investing the means. And franchising sounds like it could be the means as well. Until next time, keep moving forward and may God bless.
Thank you very much for visiting the Old Dogs REI Network. We would greatly appreciate if you would stop by iTunes and let us know what you think of the show. We would love if you could subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and write a review. The more ratings and reviews we receive, the more visible the podcast will be to others. Thank you.